The timelessness of God. If you've never studied the relationship between time and God, this video may be a little bit beyond you. That doesn't mean I don't implore you and hope that you try to understand it, but I'm just saying that a lot of the information and the knowledge in this video may go right over your head, and that's okay. This is high-level philosophy. If you haven't studied it before, you may want to go check out some lower-level stuff just to get an understanding before you really dive into this. With that being said, man, I hope you really do try to understand it, because the closer that you get to real knowledge and real understanding, I believe, it's my belief, that the closer you will be to becoming a theistic essentialism. So a theistic essentialist. So I hope that you guys actually do try to understand what I'm talking about in this video. With that being said, let's get into the timelessness of God. First of all, it's important to know that time cannot be eternal in the past. But God is eternal in the past. God is the uncreated creator. God did not begin to exist. God just always was. So how can we reconcile these two things? How can we talk about these things in a logically coherent way? How can we talk about these things in a way that makes sense? What's really going on here? Let's dive into this matter, shall we? First of all, if you were to go back beyond the beginning of time itself, there was simply eternity. By that I mean eternity in the sense of timelessness. God the eternal is timeless in his being. God did not endure through an infinite number of cause and effects. God did not endure through an infinite amount of time up until the moment of creation. That would be absurd. God transcends time. God is beyond time. God exists outside of time. Once God creates the universe, that is when time begins to exist. So God existing changelessly alone without the universe is timeless. And time comes into existence at creation, and so has a beginning and is finite in the past. Again, time comes into being and time is finite in the past. Time has a starting point. God, in virtue of his real relation to the temporal world, becomes temporal at the moment of creation. Yes. So, pay very close attention here. God exists timelessly without creation and temporarily at the moment of creation. For example, a man sitting eternally in a chair could will himself to stand up. Thus, a temporal effect arises from an eternally existing agent. Similarly, a finite time ago, a creator endowed with free will could have willed to bring the universe into being at that moment. In this way, God could exist changelessly and eternally, but choose to create the universe in time. By choose, one need not mean that the creator changes his mind either, because we know God is all-knowing. God does not change his mind. What I mean is, God freely and eternally had an intention to create the universe and the world with a beginning. Again, there is no moment prior to creation, and time begins at creation. This is the classical view as defended, for example, by Augustine. On this view, it is logically incoherent to ask something like, what was God doing prior to creation? Because prior to creation implies a moment before creation. The question is asking, basically, what happened in a moment in time before the first moment in time? This is logically absurd. This question makes no sense. Essentially, it's like asking, what's the name of that bachelor's wife? Also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the irrefutable logic behind infinite regress. If time has no beginning, if time existed eternally in the past, forever and ever in the past, and it had no starting point, that means we would have traversed an infinite number of cause and effects to arrive at this current moment where I'm talking to you. But we know that you cannot traverse an infinite number of cause and effects, so that also is logically absurd. The thought experiment about the man sitting in the chair is meant to illustrate a point about freedom of will. A person can exist changelessly and then freely execute a certain intention because free will doesn't require any antecedent determining conditions. The very nature of free will is the absence of causal determinants. So, a free choice has the appearance of a purely spontaneous event. The man can simply freely will to stand up. Thus, you can get a temporal effect from a changeless cause if that cause is a free agent. That's a key point. If that cause is a free agent. Now, in God's case, God exists changelessly without the universe. Creation is a freely willed act of God that, when it occurs, brings time into being along with the universe. What timelessness entails is that one doesn't do anything different, and that there are no events occurring whatsoever. Timelessness implies an unchanging state of being. Now, some knowledge does not require change in time. For example, God can know all truths in that timeless state without any change. You may be asking, how is this possible? Atheist killer, how's this possible, young Chambo, since I'm the youngest person in the universe? Let me explain it to you. There is no sequence of events to God's thought processes. He's all-knowing and without limitation. Human beings, when they think, they have a sequence of events to their thoughts. You may think one thing and think another, etc., one after another. But God knows all things because he's all-knowing, so he knows all these things together in the same instant. Similarly, one can also have unchanging intentions. So long as one's intentions don't change, they can be timelessly held. This is why God can exist without the universe with a timeless intention to create the universe with a beginning. Also, when I say choose to create, I mean that God has a free intention of his will. Its timelessness does not negate the fact that it's a choice, for one can conceive of possible worlds in which God has a quite different intention, namely to refrain from creating a universe or a world at all. Thank God he didn't, or I wouldn't be here talking to you people right now. So let's start wrapping this up. God is timeless, and prior to creation, he's unchanging. But it does not follow that he couldn't change or didn't change. For example, he can change when he begins to do something new or create something, because he now has some level of relation to that creation. Thus, in a way, God changed when he created the universe, and in doing so, he became temporal, at least for some duration. That is not to say he could not or did not then return to a timeless state. Whether God is timeless or temporal is a contingent property of God dependent upon his free will. What is impossible is changing while remaining timeless. Again, what is impossible is changing while remaining timeless. But a timeless being can change and thereby cease to be timeless. This is to say that God is timeless and has a timeless intention to create. When his will and timeless intention to create is realized, he is no longer unchanging. Therefore, at that very moment when his intention manifested is when time essentially begins to exist. That is the timelessness of God. I see you soon, man. I'm the Atheist Killer. I hope you guys are staying safe out there in the world. Staying away from this coronavirus. I hope all your friends and family and everybody is staying safe. I love you. Hope you guys are liking the videos. With that being said, if you know any atheists, send me your highest level atheist. Send me your very best, because I'd like to intellectually humiliate them. I'd like to have a live, real-time public debate that we can record with rules and moderators on a neutral site. Because atheism is dead. I am the Atheist Killer, man. I'll see you guys soon. Don't forget to check out Theistic Essentialism online. And feel free to hit me up in the DMs if you have any questions. And I'll talk to you soon, man. I'm out of here, bro. Peace.